January of this year, how much did you make trading?
I made $157,000.
February of this year, 2024, how much did you make?
We made $205,000.
Okay. Last month, which was March of 2024, how much did you break?
We made $106,000.
Now, I know we just ended April. I'm not sure if you've looked at your numbers yet, but do you have your numbers so far for April?
I do. I made just under $77,000.
Wow. To look at your total profit throughout your career, we're looking at over $5 million?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. What's something maybe that you've done for yourself or maybe for one of your family members maybe that was just crazy?
I took them all on a private jet, flew out from San Diego to Port St. Lucie to surprise them, and then flew them back to San Diego on a private jet. And that was my grandfather's dream. You know, as hard as he worked, didn't necessarily have maybe the fortune he wanted to create. So one of his goals was to take a private jet ride. So we got to do that for him. And then maybe 8 to 12 months, they have passed away.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Calvin checking in. Forex Beginner Podcast. Today, we have Kyle Williams in the building. What's up, Kyle? How you feeling, brother?
What's going on? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you reaching out and having me be here. So,
man, absolutely. Listen, I'm gonna start this interview up a little different, Kyle. I've never done this before, but I want you to trust me. I know we just met, but I want you to trust me on this. So I'm gonna ask you a series of questions real quick, and I just want you to answer the question without a disclaimer, and I want you to trust me. Okay?
All right.
All right. So, January of this year, 2024. Okay. How much did you make trading?
Let me double check. Go to my left here. We made $157,000. I made $157,000.
Perfect. February of this year, 2024. How much did you make?
We made $205,000.
Okay. Last month, which was March of 2024, how much did you make?
We made $106,000.
Now, I know we just ended April. I'm not sure if you've looked at your numbers yet, but do you have your numbers so far for April?
I do. I made just under $77,000.
Wow. And to look at your total profit throughout your career, we're looking at over $5 million?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying this and I'm starting this way because I just want to let you know that it is possible. You do not have to have jewelry. You do not have to have Rolexes. Nothing wrong with those things, but you do not have to look like you have millions in order to be a person that trades and makes millions, ladies and gentlemen. So I said that I wanted to set the stage like that for a reason, because today I want to focus on what it takes, the things that Kyle has had to go through to get to this point. So Kyle, welcome, my brother. How you feeling, man?
Thank you. Right on. That was a great way to start off. Thank you. Appreciate that. That was cool.
Yes. So tell us, man, where are you currently living, man? Where are you enjoying life? Where are you enjoying these hundreds of thousands of dollars per month right now?
I was born and raised in San Diego, California, and I am still currently here. So yes. So I'm sure some people listening are like, oh, the taxes, California. I'm like, yes, I would agree. The taxes are not great. But honestly, my entire childhood friends are here. The overwhelming majority of my family is here. My fiance's family is from Texas. She's from Texas. So I do go to Texas quite a lot. Mm-hmm. But we reside and stay in San Diego. So
I love it. And congratulations on your engagement, man. That's fresh.
Yeah,
new news right there. So congratulations on that, man. Super excited for you. Next year will be 10 years for me. I've been married since I was 25. So I'm 34 now. Yeah. So listen.
Very cool.
It's the best investment you'll ever make. And I'm pretty sure you picked the winner.
I hope so, right? Yeah. No idea.
Definitely. So before we jump into the journey, I do want to ask this last question, right? So you've been able to make over $5 million profits. What's one thing that you did that was like a real flex that people may not know, but because you have done so well for yourself, what's something maybe that you've done for yourself or maybe for one of your family members, maybe that was just crazy?
One of the things, so I guess there's two. Mm-hmm. One of them is more meaningful maybe than the other, but actually both are pretty meaningful. I shouldn't downgrade the other one. When you said the word crazy, it made me actually change my answer. The first answer I had was I took my immediate family, so my parents, sister, and aunt, and then now at the time she's my girlfriend and fiance, I took them all to Italy This was last May, like all expenses paid. Like I paid for it. We flew business class in like the little pods. That was really cool.
Wow.
Because most of them had never done that before, and I had done it like once before, and I was sold. Like the first time I flew over to the eastern side of the world, I flew on a pod, and I was like, I could never do economy. It's the one I got spoiled too early, and now thankfully I have the money to do it. Obviously, if I didn't, I would be flying economy. But flew them over in business, and then we did like a full 2 weeks around Italy. And I kind of told them that I would do that for them well beyond before I even made $1 million. It was like,
Wow.
I told them, I think I was maybe just slightly becoming profitable. And I told them along the lines of like, when I make enough, however much enough was at the time, but obviously successfully enough to afford that kind of a trip, I'm going to take us all. And so, COVID happens, that pushed it back. We had some family member health issues that pushed it back. So finally in 2023, we were able to do that. So that was really cool. The other thing that made me think of that changed my answer to when you said crazy was I also did the same thing with the same family members, except my fiance. I wasn't dating her at the time. But with my grandparents before they passed, and this was in August or September 2021, I took them all on a private jet we surprised them in, they lived in Port St. Lucie, Florida. They were retired there. We flew out from San Diego to Port St. Lucie to surprise them, and then flew them back to San Diego on a private jet. And that was my grandfather's dream. He did, maybe, as hard as he worked, didn't necessarily have maybe the fortune he wanted to create, but he was the one who wore the Rolexes, the nice clothes. And so one of his goals was to be up or take a private jet ride. And so we got to do that for him. And then, about maybe 8 to 12 months, they have passed away. So it was a really cool thing we did before really the later ends of their lives. So it was really, really awesome.
Man, that is everything, bro.
It was a sweet time. It was
wow. Cool. Like that's why we come to this, right? It's for that freedom to be able to share those experiences with the people we love most. Man, that is powerful. Come on. Yeah, man.
It was a sweet trip. I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was really cool.
Listen, man, your fiance is going to be watching this. So she's, you know what I mean? Honeymoon, she's going to be expecting a private jet.
And so funny. I mean, I don't even know what it is now, but back then, and this was before, this was the beginning of inflation, everything kind of becoming high priced and such. But I mean, I don't even want to know how much it would cost that same flight now. Because me and my fiance have not gone on any private jet. We haven't done anything that crazy, because I don't even want to look at how much more expensive it is since then. So we're going to hold off on that one.
I love it, man. So, with all this success, of course, there is a story. And, Kyle, like I just really, you've been on the circuit and, I highly recommend after this interview, if this is your first time hearing about Kyle, check him out on YouTube, and we're going to put links everywhere. But there are a bunch of interviews that Kyle has dropped gems throughout his journey, not just when he's quote unquote made it. He's been talking for years now about the process and what he's been doing. So we're not going to go all the way into the story, but I want to get to what it takes to get to where you are today. Now, I remember you got started in trading because you saw a course, and you got this course, and you invested about $6,000 into your first account. What happened with that first account? Like, can you talk about that?
Yeah. The first couple the very first trade was completely blind. So and by blind, I had no software. I had like 15-minute delayed Google charts were my go-to. Very silly, very naive, just very lazy. By a couple weeks in, I realized, okay, no, there's actually real time. I need to pay for that. Bought a live feed, live data software, and took my first trade. It was like I followed alert, again, lazy, just followed the course's alert, so to speak. And and it was an overnight trade. So I bought it into the close overnight. I woke up the next morning. I was up like 20% higher. I made like $500. Nice. One of my first huge wins, like the first huge win. And most traders maybe can remember that feeling. For them, it was like, I was hooked. That was it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like, this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like the junkie and the adrenaline of it just pulsed in my veins that morning. Right. Then I'm sure, as most people realize, like, that's just not how it goes. It does not happen that quickly at all, let alone, months in, not even your first third trade in or second trade in, right?
Absolutely.
And the losses started coming. I had like a 10 to 20% win rate. Obviously, there are strategies that can be profitable that much, but again, the strategy and the area of the stock market that I trade, small cap specifically, like that is not it. That does not really exist. And so just bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. I mean, at my peak, I lost maybe like 14 or 15 trades in a row.
Wow.
I couldn't buy myself a win. And so that $6,000 E-Trade account quickly turned into like $1,700 at the low.
Mm.
And so I quickly realized like I have to change. And obviously throughout this period, this was over like a 10-month period. Obviously I was slowly getting better, but even getting better, it's easy to, or it's hard to know that you're getting better internally, but then seeing the external result of your account still going lower is never fun. And so that was kind of the rock bottom for me of like, if I don't change something externally beyond just learning myself, if I don't actually change how and what I'm trading, like this account's going to go to zero. Thankfully it didn't. That was like the hard stop. I finally kind of started to break even and then eventually come out of that learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how the first account went. If I didn't make changes too soon or soon enough, that account would have been to zero and I would have had to refund everything, so.
Wow. So what are you doing at this time? Like, are you working a job? Are you in school? What's happening while this account is going down?
Yeah. So I had found the idea or the concept. It's so funny I say the concept because of trading, because at the time I had come across it in the movie The Big Short, about the whole 2008 financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And all I could remember them talking about was, they're making money and turning to more money. I didn't even know what trading was until I came across, they're like physically and actively trading stocks or the stock market. So this was around the summer of 2016, early summer, maybe spring. And I was going into my sophomore year of college. Quickly changed my major from engineering to finance. Finance degree didn't really help me at all. So I was kind of, but thankfully it made my degree easier. I had to take, I was able to take less classes than the engineering degree would. So it gave me more time to actually trade versus study college. And then I was also a part-time like server / waiter. So I pretty much changed my entire world and schedule to make sure trading was the priority. So I immediately started moving all my classes to either later in the day, because I'm on the West Coast, so the market closes at 1 o'clock. I would either start taking classes like 2 o'clock or even a night class like 7 or 8 p.m. I would then take all of my part-time shifts from the weekdays and put them all on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. And I left as much time as I possibly could when the market was open, not necessarily to trade, right? Because again, I was under the PDT, which is a $20,000 account minimum. I only had $6,000, but I used that time to whatever I could, studying, watching videos, learning courses, podcasts, you name it. Or essentially trading, but it's like that was the devoted time that I did, for pretty much all of college. So
I love it. So you get to a point and that $6,000 account dips down to about what, $2,000, $2,100, $2,200, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, boom. So it gets to that point. What are you noticing at that point that needs to change? Like you mentioned, like something has to change here. What are you actually noticing, and what type of, planning or what type of adjustments, what audibles are being called, so to speak, in order to shift this drawdown into some type of consistency?
Yeah. The first thing for me was that before I even, because finding consistency is obviously achievable. It can be done, but there's also this bit of uncertainty as to when it's coming. You can work as hard as you can, but until you really grasp it, which it's not even this one aha moment. It's very slowly over time kind of thing, at least in my opinion. So I didn't know when I was going to get it. All that I know, I was going to have to do as much as I possibly can to get there. And so the first thing that popped in my head was like, I just have to stop the bleeding, right? The whole goal for me was like, let's not let this count go to zero. I have to just stop the bleeding or minimize it as much as I possibly can. And frankly, that should have been the goal when I first started trading. I just hadn't really very light, loose, if not no risk management when I first started. So it was just start trading. There was no other process or protection in terms of risk management. Finally, I had started implementing an actual, at least minimal, but something, a risk management, which was I started only trading with 100 shares. So like, again, small caps that I trade, it's like typically 99.9% of trades are going to be between 5 cents and $10. Anywhere in between there. They typically move the same for most companies, or most stocks. So I kind of committed to only buying or selling 100 shares. So yes, that's not the best risk management, because again, if I'm buying or selling a stock at $100 or $100 that's $100 position. But if I'm doing it at $10, it's a $1,000 position. So it's quite the big difference. But either way, it would just greatly minimize my losses. And my losses went from losing 100 to 200 a trade down to like 30 or 60 a trade.
Wow.
Just from the mere fact of how I made trade plans. I was never risking a massive amount, even if it was on $1 or $10. I was still stopping out for 30, 40, 50, $60 losses. That, and luckily I did that about maybe a few trades or a couple weeks right before I hit that, 14 or 15 losing streak. And so had I not done that, instead of taking, say, average of $50 losses 15 times, I would have taken $100 or $200 losses 15 times. That account would have gone to zero. Like, it would have happened. Wow. So that was the first thing. Just minimizing and or stopping the bleeding as much as I possibly could, which for me, in my case, was trading very small. I could have probably done it even more. I knew a trader, his name was Bryce. He did something incredible that I think most people will not or won't refuse to do. He traded with like 2 shares to where like wow. commissions or fees or whatever it was at the time, almost guaranteed he'd be unprofitable. But he just looked at, it was almost like paper trading, but just at such a minuscule level with actual real money, where he would still look at, okay, well, what percent gain or did I actually make? Like, did I actually make 20, 30, 40, 50% of my trade? Even though it's 2 shares, like, you're going to make $1, right? In profit, but like it still meant something to him. And then he scaled up after that. So I probably could have done it better. But the second thing was then I have to then not just kind of gamble. Like, obviously there's a level of gambling to trading. You are taking a guesstimated bet with money on the table, but don't be a gambler or degenerate. I continuously just threw money at any one stock because I thought it would go up or I thought it would go down. There was never any process to or statistical edge as to why I thought something was going to happen. And so once I kind of nailed that down and finding something that's repeatable, that shows up not just on one stock, but multiple stocks, and typically, repeats in the same framework or fashion, then I had a process and a structure to go around of like, okay, if the stock has, these 3 indicators and it looks just like, if the chart looks like this, I have something in front of me here that I now know has a, at the time it was like a 65% win rate, right? And so from there, it was just a matter of actually making the trade plans, entering the trade correctly, which again took me about maybe 2 or 3 months. And from there, that turned from stopping the bleeding to break even till 3 or 3 months, and then finally getting good at it and becoming, profitable. It was small numbers at the time. My first 3 profitable months were like $200, $300, or $400, but it was the beginning from having all red months to then all green, even if they were small. So that was kind of the shift there to get me out of the learning curve. So
yeah. So risk management, and then finding a setup, finding something that's working, and then building upon that.
Right.
So then you started, as you said, like 3 months. Okay, $400. Are you paying attention to the money, or is it more so the process, right? Can I come to the market, look for these opportunities, look for this 1 or 2 good setups, and just be content with, hey, I executed good, whether it was a win or whether it was a loss, I executed. Like, what was the focus there?
Mm-hmm. It was a little bit of both, if I'm being honest, right? It's easy for me to look back now and with my own bias of where I'm at now, which is I rarely do care about the money, because trading the process will end up, counterintuitively end up more money in your pocket in the long run. But definitely back then, when I was a newer beginner trader, even if I was coming out of the learning curve and finding profitability, there absolutely was the aspect of caring, for sure. I think the process obviously beat that, right? Like, if it's a battle of between, 50-50, it's like it was 51% process, 49% profits, right? Because I think if you do care more about the profits than the money or than the process, you will eventually just lose. It's very counterintuitive like that. So I definitely valued the process, but then I calculated the money, if that's a way to speak. Like, I still trust the process of like, hey, I need to risk this much, I need to follow this trade plan, I need to stick to the setup. But then once I was in the trade, I never was someone to hide my P&L. I definitely knew where I was up or down. But that allowed me to kind of almost force myself to be okay with being uncomfortable. Where if I was, I entered a trade and I was down $20, but my stop loss is when I'm down $40, I may not feel good about being down $20, but I had to logically remind myself, like, being down $20 doesn't matter. It's the trade plan that matters. And so absolutely I cared and watched the money, but like, I let the trade plan take priority, for sure.
Yeah.
In the process.
So were you doing anything extra to just kind of work on your mental side, your confidence in yourself? Like, did you start working out more? Were there new routines outside of trading that you were adapting? Did anything on that side, like as far as the mental thing, change for you as well?
That's a really good question, because I actually forgot about that I did this, but I definitely did, and it definitely helped. I watched and listened to a lot of motivational YouTube videos and podcasts, like Les Brown.
Yeah.
Listened to a lot of his stuff. Not so much Zig Ziglar, but like Jim Rohn, if I'm saying it's Jim Rohn.
Yep. Jim Rohn.
Tony Robbins. I listened to a lot of, at the time, the podcast called School of Greatness with Lewis Howes. I haven't listened to that podcast in forever, but I was a big fan of his for a long time throughout that period. And again, none of those things are at all trading related, but it's all about like just not even self-confidence, but and not even law of attraction, but just, having a positive mindset, having a life happens for you, not to you kind of mindset. And I definitely think, it's so easy to not look at where I'm at now and not really forget about this stuff, because I haven't really looked or watched those videos in a very long time. But I definitely think that was a huge factor for sure. In many ways, it definitely changed how I thought. And I have never really met really successful profitable traders that are very negative or insecure or down in the dumps. Or it's like, the more, and it's so funny, the more you let your own self get in the way of yourself, like the harder profitable trading would be. So some of the best traders know how to like remove themselves from themselves. And so when I think of like insecurity or anxiety or stress or all these things that other outside life can affect you on, and then you take it into the market, like it's a recipe for disaster kind of thing. And so I definitely think those videos strengthened any life battles I may have been going through or just dealing with, and really allowed me to strengthen that mindset for just any endeavor, trading, sports, whatever I wanted to do, career, like whatever it was. So totally. Yeah. That definitely helped.
One question that I get asked all the time, and I'm going to answer it right now so you don't have to go in the comment section and ask it again. Calvin, how are you trading in the market? How are you participating in the foreign exchange market? Well, there's 3 ways that I'm using. One way has been traditionally using Forex prop firms. Now, I got funded with my first prop firm account back in 2021. That was actually my second year of trading. I was still learning, just developed my new scalping strategy, and I was able to get funded with the prop firm $100,000 in simulated prop firm capital. Simulated meaning it's a demo account. However, you get paid on any profits that you make using those simulated/demo accounts. Now, if that's something that you're interested in, check out Blue Guardian. Blue Guardian has this amazing tool called the Guardian Protector. And what the Guardian Protector does is it allows you to set limits in the market, even if you don't set a stop loss. Even before you even take a trade, you can set limits in the market. Log onto your account, go in your back office, set these limits. They can be dollar amount limits or they can be percentage limits, so that once you hit those limits in your trades, it's going to automatically take you out, and it gives you the opportunity to live to trade another day. Also, when it comes to trading my personal account, I utilize a offshore broker and a US regulated broker. Now, the bulk of my money is in the US regulated broker, but I do put a couple $100s in a offshore broker, a non-US regulated broker, and the broker that I use is 24K Markets. What I like about 24K Markets so far is the quick withdrawals. I was able to take a withdrawal last week, and the deposit hit my account in like 45 minutes. Also, being able to utilize the platform Trade Locker with 24K Markets allows me to trade from my cell phone as well as my computer or tablet, and literally I can drag and drop my take profit, drag and drop my stop loss. Very, very easy to use and to manage risk as well. And before we get back to the interview, please remember trading involves extreme risk. So number one, make sure you're never investing money that you need to live your life, money that you're depending on to survive. Number two, make sure you have a trading plan. Make sure you have tested your strategy, you have the data. Number three, make sure you're practicing discipline, patience, and number four, let the money come to you. Don't run behind trades. Let the setups come to you. Let's get back to the interview. So this account starts to build. It starts to go. That equity curve is literally in an uptrend. It's climbing, right? And so you reach a point where that $6,000 account goes down to 2K, right? And then you find the setup. You're working on the mindset. You're surrounding your mental with positivity, right? And you're working this one setup. And eventually that account that was down 2K is now up 100K in profit. How long was that period from when you drew down and then you started to make those changes until you hit 100K in profit? And then did you ever at any point, like maybe when you got back to 6,000, look and you're like, whoa, like this is real. This is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, talk to me about that. Like, what are you thinking as this thing is getting to that point?
Yeah. Totally. I mean, so I made those necessary changes and starting collecting those early small green months. This was March. It really started in March 2017, and then the ending of those, or the first like green month streak that I had, was August 2017. So that, what is it, 5 to 6 month period really was the stop the bleeding, become break even, and then actually find profitability. So from August 2017 to when did I cross $100,000? It was August 2019. So a full 2 years later was how long that roughly took me to go from pretty much practically slightly down a few grand to up 100. I crossed back over the break even level. So if I, lost 4K, I got back to zero, like ground level, in December of 2017. And that was the moment where what you're mentioning, which is like, oh crap, this is working. I was able to like look at my equity curve of just my overall, losing 4K and then making it back. And it was really like night and day. It literally went from, I guess I'll twist around for the camera. It literally was like straight losing to sideways to then straight winning. So it was a full 180 of not just losses or gains, but just pure consistency of just looking at not a stock chart, but my equity chart and just being like, I'm clearly doing something exactly opposite, which is from completely wrong to completely correct. That for me was probably a big moment of like, whatever I'm doing, it's working. Maybe at the time I was so new that I didn't know exactly why I was working, other than having a process and a setup, etc. But like that was the not the aha, but like the real first moment of like, this is happening. And the best thing I did was I didn't have any expectations on how quickly it was going to happen. I just knew it was going to happen. Right. I had that self-confidence that like, I'm going to make this work. There was just no hard or stressful expectations of when it was going to work. Yeah. Right. And I think that really helped a lot. So
at any point in time, as you were building back, you crossed the break-even mark. Now you're up 1,000 in profit. You're up 2,000, et cetera, 10,000. Was there any point where you said to yourself, like, man, I don't want to mess this up? Or did at any point fear come in that, man, this is going too good, I'm going to probably drop the ball again?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
That's good.
I've never really had I guess I don't know if you'd call it this, or like not imposter syndrome, but like, fear of it getting too good. Right. I don't really had that, because I'm not someone who, gets too high on their own supply, so to speak. Right. Like I've never, I'll be a happy person. I will be excited about my success or about my achievements or whatever, but it's never changed how I think or feel. Right. Like, sure, it'll be a hurrah, hip, hip, hooray kind of thing, but it doesn't change how I then go into next week or next month of like, I'm so good, look at me kind of thing. It's never been that. It's just kind of a very, I don't want to say monotone, but I'm just kind of flowing. Right. I'm not riding a huge wave and then crash. I'm just going along with life and trading as a whole. So I wouldn't say I've ever had those huge euphoria moments, but also on the flip side, thankfully, I've never also had that huge, oh my gosh, what if I fail kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So you get to the point where obviously 100K in profit 2 years later, you're obviously doing this. You end up graduating college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. So obviously, while everybody's probably applying for internships, applying for jobs, what is that process like for you? Are you applying for jobs, or I'm a full-time stock trader?
Yeah. So the goal for me was to make enough money trading so that by the time I graduated college, I didn't have to get a job. That was the whole goal. Mm-hmm. And I thankfully, my parents, and they're really, really awesome for how they handled this. And thankfully it was honestly their own doing as well. My mom, I think, took 5 or 6 years to graduate college, and my dad took 8, and he's not even a doctor. He's just an engineer. So he technically could have got a doctorate degree. I know some doctors take longer than 8, but he was in college for 8 years. So there was never a pressure from them for me to be like, you got 4 years and that's it kind of thing. And so it was already going to take me 5 years doing mechanical engineering. Switched to finance. Unfortunately, it had me have to retake or redo other electives or other units to get enough to graduate. And on top of that, I I specifically took one less class a semester to give myself more time for my part-time job, and then B, trading, obviously, to where I was now on pace to finish in 6 years. So started college, January or in the semester or fall of 2014, graduated in the spring of 2020. So like middle of COVID, my finals were online. And it really was just perfect timing where I had made, again, so I crossed over $100,000 in August of 2019. By the end of 2019 was over, on the actual year-to-date numbers, I had made about $90,000 in that year. And so that's kind of when my parents and myself knew, like, I'm not getting a job. My dad wanted me to get a job out of college. So I actually fake applied for internships. Like there was a few I applied for, but I never actually called to follow up. I never had any intention of actually trying to get one. In my head, it was like plan A is find profitable trading. And then if I have to scramble and find something else right after college, then that's what I'll just do. So I totally told my dad, I'm like, oh yeah, I applied to 6 today, I applied 10 tomorrow. But I never really did. Sorry, Dad. But, and it just worked out well. Like I just kind of put everything in the boat, and I burned the boat to swim to the island of profitable trading. And so by the time COVID came around and I graduated, by this time I'm probably up over almost $200,000 in profits at this point. And so it was like, you couldn't even try to bargain with me of getting an entry-level job out of college. Like I was making more than that. And on top of that, I was already doing what I was enjoying, which was trading. So yeah, that's how it just worked out well for me in that terms of that timing. So
that's so awesome. So like, how are you at that time? And then we can talk about like more so now how you're doing it. But at that time, of course, you graduate, congratulations. And of course, you, as long as everybody watching this, if you're making $200,000 profit, you're definitely not going to get a job, right? You're just going to keep doing what you're doing. So how are you managing how much you're paying yourself versus how much you're keeping in the account? Because of course, you got to keep money in the account to continue to build upon the progress that you've already made. So how are you finding that balance?
Yeah, this is a tough one because it enters the realm of how someone handles their personal finances, which I'm totally open to sharing, but obviously I'm not a financial advisor. I can't, tell anyone what they should do. And this is also why I think not unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your age or when you find trading, why at least in my experience, I've seen a lot of younger people find success earlier, not because they maybe know the material or are able to trade necessarily better, but because they have less financial burden on themselves to begin with versus someone who's got a mortgage and 3 kids and insurance and all of these life responsibilities beyond just themselves. And so for me, when I was in college, I'm the broke college student, right? I was living at home. The only bills I have was like, actually I got my car in college, or not in college, in high school. So like that was paid off. I had like a phone bill, no rent, food and groceries. Like that was it. And so I really had my expenses low as they were ever going to be. And so the idea of paying myself didn't actually even need to happen until I quit my part-time job as a waiter, which I actually did in spring or summer of 2019, because I remember I actually made like 10 or somewhere in the 10 to 16 grand range that one month. I think it was April 2019. And I wasn't even making that much working part-time for the full year of being a server. I think as a server working 2 or 3 days a week, I was making around 15 grand. So when I made 15 grand in 1 month, I was like, it's like, screw this popsicle stand. Like I'm done, And so once I did that, then I realized, okay, yeah, trading is the only income I have. I do have some expenses, even if it was $1,000 a month. Like it was low, but I still had something. That point I pulled out like 6 to 10 grand. And my account was already, on its way to 100,000. Because at this point, I'd pulled like nothing out. I'd only pulled out maybe a couple grand. Actually, no, I didn't. I actually used money that I had saved up from my part-time job to pay off the taxes from the capital gains I had in 2018. Because I made like $30,000 in 2018. Mm-hmm. So I had saved up money to pay the taxes to keep my account untouched as long as I possibly could. Because like, yeah, you understand, you need the money to grow the account. And if I can make 5, 10, 15% on any one given trade, why would I want any less money in the account? Right. Exactly. But again, that's easier said than done when you have no life expenses. So as time went on, obviously expenses got bigger and I started paying myself more. I'm not a fan of paying myself month to month because I feel like that's too much pressure.
Yeah. Per se, of like,
yeah, if you didn't make a good month, like, oh my gosh, you're going to feel way less, not as good about pulling money out of your accounts now. For me, I like to do it quarterly, even sometimes like annual or semi-annually, where it's like, you know what, it's a lump chunk or a lump sum bigger, but it's like, I'm good for, I mean, even now in this case, it's not like I'm even now, if I didn't pull out money for a year, like I have money elsewhere at this point, thankfully, to not even worry about it. But just from a pay yourself, kind of keep some healthy relationship with that going, it'll be like quarterly or semi-annually. Yeah. But yeah, it's hard because if another world, another universe where I find trading at 35 and I have 2 kids and a mortgage, a full-time job, not to mention a part-time job, like it would change things immensely. I would have had to have probably made way more trading before I even thought about quitting or paying myself and having my job actually sustain my life and then my responsibilities. So yeah, I mean, I love, obviously you can tell, I love personal finance even beyond trading. So like, obviously I'm rambling on, but that's a huge aspect and why it worked out the way it did so well for me, because I was just at the right place doing the right things at the right time. So,
man, that's so great. And just so mature of you, right? Like,
thanks.
No, like it's just, it shows why you're successful, right? Because if you're paying yourself monthly, it brings about emotion. It brings about, pain. And then you're a man, and then you're getting ready to be a husband, and then eventually kids are going to come, right? And so it's like you are preparing, like you've already prepared yourself to sustain this growth, because just the way things are structured, and I can already tell, like, you live your life very minimalistic. You know what I mean? Like, you're very calm. Like, I can tell that already.
To give some even more insight, like, yeah, so I'm 28 now. Me and my fiance, we're very future forward thinkers. Like, we kind of have an age range where we'd want kids. And I'm not even, it's not a stress or anxiety, but it's like, I'm already planning of like, when I have kids, I want to have other assets to where they will cover those expenses. Like, I truly want my trading to stay not a game, but I want to keep it as free flowing and carefree as possible. Because that allows me to trade the best. The moment I start trading with the intent of, I need to make this much this month, or I can't pay these bills or afford these things, that's when everything falls apart. I can't tell you how even if you are profitable and can make money every month or every quarter or whatever it is, even the fact that you have to continually dwindle down your accounts to back where you started immensely hurts your long-term growth. Because again, let's say you make, again, so for me, on average, I make about 10 to 11% on my money per month, just over my career. It hasn't been always that perfect, but over the, nearly 8-year career I have now, I'm expected to make around 10% on my money. So it's like, knowing that, would I rather trade with $1 million or $200,000? I can make 20 grand in a month, or I can make 100 grand in a month. Right. And so knowing that, it's like, I want, relatively speaking, and in a safe way, as much responsible money in my accounts as possible. And when I have, or in another world, again, have a massive amount of expenses, like let's say I just rack up, 50K in expenses every month. And every month I'm having to pull out 50K to pay for those things. Now, all of a sudden, instead of having $1 million account, like it's never growing, it's never getting anywhere. And I'm staying at some lower number because I just have things that are weighing over on myself financially. So keeping that as free and as carefree as possible really allows you to really push the needle, I think, long term and in terms of account growth, and then ultimately more money in your pocket in the long term. So
I love that. Now, speaking of how great of a money manager I believe you are, right? Just for listening to you talk, what are your thresholds in terms of your current account size right now? What is a threshold like that? If I hit this percentage in drawdown, I'm taking money out and I'm trading with less. I know you have it because I can just tell by how you manage your personal money and talking. So talk to me about that process. Like, how do you work that out, with your current account?
Yeah. So there's a few kind of stop levels to this. The most minimal, the very first one is if I know, so typically over my career, I win about 63% of the time. So I'm expected 6 times out of 10 is going to be a winning trade. 4 times out of 10 will be a losing trade. Typically over my career, if that means I'm ever taking 4, 5, 6, 7 losses in a row, like once the streak starts to get, over 5, I then know I'm at a period where I am either trading poorly personally, or I'm just in a very tough market where maybe I'm trading as good as I possibly can, but the market is it's just a tough environment. that's the first trigger for me where, okay, you need to at least size down. Like clearly whatever's going on right now is not effective. You shouldn't be losing this many times in a row. Like size down. I might cut my size in half. So like if I'm willing to take a $4,000 loss in any given trade, I'll jump it down or bump it down to 2K, right? There's no, and doing that almost immediately stops me from taking any massive drawdown in terms of overall percentage of the bigger account, right? Because typically I really don't like losing more than maybe 10%, right? So if I'm looking at right now, I have a $700,000 account, right? If I lose 70 grand or more, give or take, I will immediately notice that. I'm like, oh, okay, we need to, again, size down, bump it, but cut it in half, so to speak. So it's either one of those that happens first. Typically, it's the 6 losses in a row kind of thing that happens first. Because again, if you do like 6 times 4, it's only 24 grand. It's not even close to the 10% of 70,000 or 700,000. On the flip side, there are moments where I will lose discipline or just be in a very maybe aggressive scenario, and I'm wrong. If I lose over 50,000 in one trade, which has happened more times than I want to admit, if that happens, I will then wire out an arbitrary amount of money. I wish I had maybe a more concrete answer for you, but like, for example, last year I had lost, it was in April of last year, I had grown my account very quickly. It went from, like, I started the year off with $500,000. By April, I was already up to $1 million.
Wow.
And so for me, that 10% number was $100,000. And of course, here comes along this ticker called TOP. The ticker was TOP, runs from like $7 all the way up to like 240.
Wow.
Thankfully, I had stopped out by like 20, but even 7 at 20 was enough for me to lose like $105,000 with like some slippage. And so that hit the 10% mark, but that also was well over the $50,000 or $100,000 mark that I kind of had based on those levels. And so I immediately wired out all my profits on the year. So I, after the loss, I was up still like 400,000. I wired all 400,000 out, started back with the $500,000 account, and they just kept pushing along throughout my year. So that's kind of what I do. So let's say tomorrow I lose $50,000. And also sorry, going too fast for myself. That TOP loss of $100,000 made me realize just because I can take a 10% drawdown in one trade doesn't mean I have to. I'd rather take a 10% drawdown over multiple trades like we talked about. And because I took that all in one trade, I was like, I don't need to lose $100,000 to know I'm wrong. Like, just doesn't need to happen. And so my hard cap now, my hard stop is 50. Even that might be too much. But again, I try to give myself a little wiggle room because there is circumstances where I do like to be aggressive and risk 20, 30 grand on some trades. Not all, but like 1 in 100, 1 in 80 or whatever it is, very few. And so let's say next week I take a $50,000 loss. Absolutely. I will wire all my profits out. I will start back to what I started on the year with, and we'll refresh and restart from there. So those are the kind of the precautionary levels of my risk management that I have. So,
man, that's so good. That is so good. So you talk about your account is around 700,000 right now, and you've made over 5 million profits. One would say, well, Cal, like, why not, like leave some of those millions in there. You can,
right,
that 10%. Yeah. Like that 10% could be so much more, you know what I mean, per month. Right. So why do you kind of stay like around that $500,000, a little under $1 million with capital and just kind of build up from there? Like, why is that like kind of sort of your threshold there?
So there's a few things, and I love that you said that because, right, someone may listen, like he just said maximize, and now he's only trading with 20% of his entire earnings. Like, what is he doing? A few things, and partly is for me psychologically, and partly is for just overall. I think not just risk management of the account, but risk management of my entire financial life. So we talked about the risk parameters, specifically the $50,000 like max stop kind of idea. Going into 2022, I did not have that rule. There was never really a thought of how much could I lose. There was risk management in terms of, hey, if I stop out, I'm going to lose this much in terms of trade planning. But I was a little bit spoiled in terms of for those who were around in 2020, 2021, markets went nuts. I mean, any market that I heard from, any trade that I heard from that had any little bit of experience, even people with no experience, crushing it, right? It was the whole pandemic market went crazy. During that period, I had made way more money at such a faster rate than I ever had before. So going then into 2022, I had all this excess money that I really didn't know what to do with, so to speak. And so I traded 2022 with probably, I think if I remember correctly, over 1.2 to 1.5 million dollars in the account after taxes.
Wow.
Right. So like I had all this money just sitting there. And honestly, 2022 led me to take some of my biggest losses in my career. And I kind of chalk it up to like, I just had too much that I just didn't care. Like I even though I was still caring enough to trade profitably, I pretty much, I took, I think 2 or 3 six-figure losses in 2022.
Wow.
And so I quickly learned, like, just because I have more doesn't mean I'm necessarily more efficient, so to speak. Right. There becomes a point where I just, and I wouldn't say that about myself now. Like, obviously, over those years, I've learned much, much more. And so now I probably could trade with a $1.5 million account and trade it and handle it much, much better. But that period helped me really learn, like, I don't need that much to make that much. Right. I've also heard horror stories of traders who do maximize, say a replica of me, a twin me, made $5 million, has all 5 million or all, I guess after taxes, whatever, $2 or $3 million of it all into the account. He's broke everywhere else. He lives in a cardboard box. He's got his 95% of his wealth is in a brokerage account. I've heard horror stories where they are in very unfortunate circumstances, had no risk management. Again, knock on wood, I actually have risk management, but these stories, they don't, and they lose everything.
Wow.
Like, gone. Right. And at some psychological level, if the money's in your account, even with max stops, even with all these other risk management things put in place, there is a level of like, hey, if it's in your account, to some degree, you need to be willing to lose it. Doesn't mean you should. It should mean you can do everything in your power for not doing it. But until it's really out of your account, it's technically at risk. Right. So once I realized that from 2022 and then going into 2023, when I went in 23 is finally when I put in that kind of max stop of like 10% of my account. And then after 2023 or April specifically, I realized it doesn't need to be a 10%. It needs to be 50K just flat. Mm-hmm. So that's why I do that. That's number one, where it's like, I really don't need that much to make that much. At some point, there's a level of where I just stop caring or I'm too careless. And I haven't really wanted to push it back to the level. Mm-hmm. The other thing is pushing it mentally. So like, for example, early on in my career, I would use 1% of my account as risk. So like if I wanted to take any trade under the sun that I wanted to try to make money off of, and I had a $100,000 account, I would risk $1,000, right? 1% of that account. It doesn't mean only $1,000 is in the trade, but it means if I stop out, I will only lose $1,000, right?
Yes.
That works, and that's great. I think that's a very effective way to grow an account, especially if you're consistently profitable, you have a profitable strategy. However, when I was doing that, I started growing my account so quickly that the 1% of my account got too big too quickly to where now I couldn't emotionally handle it. So where, in 2 or 3 months time, that 100K account was at 200 and I wasn't emotionally ready to take that 100 or that $2,000 loss yet. I was still comfortable with 1,000. I was like, I can't jump up. I'm not going to jump to 2K tomorrow. Like I can't emotionally, I haven't laid that emotional groundwork. And so a big part of me, I can take a $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 loss on any given day and feel fine, right? I'm not going to overthink it. I'm not going to get revenge trade. I'm not going to get emotional. I can eat that loss and forget about it in an hour. Mm-hmm. So that's why my accounts are in that range, 500 to 700,000, right? At 1.5 million or 2 million, if I really want to follow the 1% rule and start risking 15 to 20K per trade, I got to be honest with myself, I don't think I could take that kind of a loss on an average base. I can take that loss on a really ideal A+ setup, right? If like the Super Bowl of trades comes along that only happens twice a year, I mean, literally happened in February on the ticker SMCI with the NVIDIA, like the AI chip craze. Mm-hmm. SMCI was the stock that ran from like 300 to 1,000 in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
That to me was like an A+ Super Bowl, like get your popcorn ready kind of trade. Mm-hmm. And so I went into that day when it topped out at 1,100 and fell to like 800. I was risking 25 grand that day. So if I was wrong, I will do that trade 10 times out of 10, right? But on any average trade, I will not. So jumping up that average trade to like a $10,000, a $15,000 loss, I'm not really there yet from an emotional, groundwork standpoint. And maybe I never will be. Mm-hmm. Part of me might be okay with always having that level be in the $5,000 to $7,000 range and only work on increasing the A+ range. So like, if another A+ Super Bowl trade comes around, I'll risk 30 or I'll risk 40 or I'll go to 50. right? And then at that point, I'll have to have a conversation with myself of like, do I want to increase that max stop to 75K or 70K so I can, play with that 50K range of just taking an A+ trade? That's kind of where I would probably rather take it, because not all trades are created equally.
Right.
I don't. So yeah, long story short, I don't think I feel comfortable taking a 5-figure loss on an average trade. So that's kind of why we keep it, where it's at. So
I love it. I love it. Now you work with a lot of traders over at Clover, and you help, you mentor, you teach a lot of traders. When you encounter a trader that's very to themselves, it's just them in their room or them in their home, and they never kind of get out and get around other traders, what type of encouragement do you give them from your experience of being new and then starting to meet traders and then becoming profitable? What type of words of advice and motivation do you give those students that are kind of in their shell about getting around other traders?
Yeah. I would tell people to just force yourself to get out of the shell. And it's a bit counterintuitive for me to say that, because I was somebody who maybe actually did just okay being by themselves. I know a lot of traders, more so than they think, can benefit from being in a community, not just in a community, but actually like out in the real world, meeting those people, going to those conferences, going to those boot camps. For me, I held off from doing that probably too long, not because I was necessarily scared, but because I almost felt like I didn't need it. And not in a sense of like, I'm better than them. It was never that. It was just, I just was maybe naturally an introvert in that sense. And it wasn't like I felt like I needed it in the sense that I was finding progress and profitability on my own to some degree. Like obviously not self-taught, but I was learning from these courses, learning it on my own. And I had become kind of profitable and got out of that hole in my account, really never talking to anyone. But I don't think that's the norm, right? That's definitely not the norm for people. And then once I actually did go to my first conference, I was like, Kyle, you're an idiot. You should have been going to these for the last 2 years, right? So if you're even on the fence and you want to go to, your community or your course's annual event or whatever it may be, absolutely, I would say do it. It's for a lot of people who crave social interaction with not only people, but just people who can relate to trading. Because most people who trade, they do it by themselves in the sense that all of their friends, all of their family members don't have a clue what they're doing. It's a whole other language. And when you start to meet other people for the first time that can speak that same language, or those same emotions, or those same interactions and experiences, like, oh, I took a big loss too. Like, how'd that make you feel? Or like, let's talk about it. It opens your world. Yeah. I would never have met the guys that I now run Clover with had I not put myself out there to go to these in-person things. So it's huge. I downplay it in the beginning because I just found profitability without of it. But like, I definitely wouldn't be here where I am now had I not eventually gone, for sure.
Man, that's so good. That's so good. Cal, you have blessed us so much, man, today. You have blessed us so much. And I'm glad. Yeah, man. And I just really hope that, that each and everybody that's watching right now, that you really replay the journey and the questions that I asked him about how he got to this point. And, definitely when he talked about the personal finances and managing your money, like all of this stuff is what makes a great trader. It's not a strategy. Like, I don't think it's one mindset. It's just a combination of things that you're doing consistently, I believe, that makes you successful in what you're doing. But Cal, right now, I want to open up the floor. If there is anything that I did not ask that you would love a trader that is on their journey, just getting started, to know, or maybe a trader that's already on the journey that may be stuck right now, like you were, when you went from 6K down to 2K, I want you to share that. And then I also want you to let us know what you got going on as far as helping other traders. Definitely plug your socials, website, all of that stuff as well.
The one thing that popped, I mean, I'm sure there's a billion things I could try to, if I could just transport my brain and like everything you need to know, like, please, but obviously I can't. The first thing that popped in my mind was really figure out if trading's really for you. And I don't mean that in a sense of like, it's not for you, like you're not talented enough or smart enough. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, like, if you really want to be profitable and really make it, we know like what 90 to 95% of people don't even make money, let alone make it as a career. There's what's the quote? It's either like, is it Yoda? I don't even know. It's probably not Yoda. It's like, do or do not, there is no try. Like, there's no trying to be profitable or trying to make trading work. Like, I genuinely believe I made it happen for me because there was never a long-term doubt that I'm not going to make this happen. Right? It may take longer than I want. I may have more bumps in the road, but like I was determined from day one, like this is what I'm doing. No ifs, ands, or buts. Whether it takes me 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, like I am going to make it happen. And I think that level of determination really changes things for you. And so if you're someone who's struggling, but then on the back of your mind, you're like, well, maybe I don't really love it that much. And maybe I only like it for the money and I rather be making money elsewhere. Like, just be honest. It's okay, you know? So I think if you define that for yourself of like how bad you really want it, it doesn't mean you want it so bad that you're going to again go all in tomorrow and lose all your cash. Like, that's not what I mean. But it's like, how determined are you to really do whatever it takes long-term to make it happen for yourself? Once you figure that out, I think you're going to move and walk differently towards and approaching trading. And I think that was a really huge key, underlying factor for my success. In terms of where people can find me, or sharing about where they can get a hold of me. My Twitter handle is Trader Kyle C. Talk a lot about trading on there. Instagram, I more really post like funny Clover guys and I, we do like funny TikToks or funny videos. That's on my Instagram at Kyle C. Williams. Also my YouTube channel, I think you mentioned that. Just type in Kyle Williams Trader. If you type in Kyle Williams, like a bunch of football stuff pops up. I think there was some football player named Kyle Williams, but Kyle Williams Trader, my YouTube channel's there. I don't know. I've been making YouTube videos since 2019. So tons on there. And then obviously Clover Trading. To anyone who wants to actually learn from me directly, as a course, as a student and a teacher kind of thing, Clover Trading is where to find me. And I love teaching just about as much as I love trading itself. So yeah.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Williams, ladies and gentlemen. And listen, before we get out of here, I think it is just not fair that Kyle only has 8,000 subscribers. So I want everybody right now, I don't even know where we are right now, but every single one of you guys, I think we're at like 90K. I want all you guys to go subscribe to Kyle's channel right now. All right. Every single month, he's dropping P&L, going through his trades, giving so much valuable, transparent value. All right. Listen, we got to support this guy. He is really blessing the community. He has blessed me before he even knew he was blessing me. So I want everybody to go subscribe to his channel. I'm serious on this, guys. This guy's adding so much value. Him, Dunn, Huddy, all of those guys, they're adding so much value. And so I want you guys to subscribe to them on YouTube. All right. So, hey, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Forex Beginner Podcast. Kyle Williams in the building, dropping gems on us. Listen, you know the slogan. I look forward to running into you at the bank one day, but you cannot meet me there. You got to beat me there. When me and Kyle pull up, all right, you should already be walking out with a big smile on your face, all right? That's our way of saying I believe we all are going to be successful. Till next time, God bless you, take care, and love yourself, all right? Peace.